if political office is only seen as something that is a hobby, like I said, of the extremely rich and the retirees, there might be a disconnect with the needs of the working man and woman.
Welcome back to Teacher Tales, where we give you the keys to overcoming teacher burnout to find work-life balance and educational bliss if it still exists. I'm your host, Tony Rambles, and on this episode of Teacher Tales, we learn how transferable skills from teaching are invaluable to navigating public office. Number two, it's important for working individuals, especially educators, to be involved in local politics to ensure our perspective is heard. And number three, having a supportive family and network is crucial to the dual roles. Tim, welcome back, man. It's good to see you.
Thank you so much, Tony. It's a pleasure to be back with you.
Yeah, so for my OGs, I had another podcast and I had Tim on there and we talked about a lot of stuff. But when I thought about the summertime and doing some different episodes for you all, I thought about when somebody holds a public office, because I see his sign every day, Tim Wood, going right down the street. I go, man, how does that affect somebody when they're a teacher and they hold this office and they're kind of out there? And so I wanted to bring Tim on to talk about some of those things specifically. So first, Tim, how long have you been in education and what do you teach?
Thank you again, Tony, for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I've been an educator for 11 years at the same school district, same school, Stafford Middle School and the Stafford Municipal School District. I was hired to teach Intro to Spanish and Heritage Spanish, so that's 7th and 8th grade Spanish, some native speakers in a class just in Spanish, and some for people that are learning it as a second language. And currently I teach Spanish 1, which is also 8th grade and Heritage Spanish. And since 2015, I've been a tennis coach. I'm the head coach in 2016. So I also have a class of tennis, and I work with the high school and middle school tennis team.
Man, so you do high school and middle schoolers. My hat goes off to you because that's a tough jump, I think.
It's not easy. Definitely differences between the middle schoolers and the high schoolers, but I think like with anything, time and experience can help make things easier, and you kind of get to know the ropes and know what to expect and how to help and reach people.
Yeah. What's been your favorite part about being a teacher over these last 11 years or so?
I would definitely say having the opportunity to intermingle with these young minds and being able to influence and be influenced by them as well. It's really something that can be moving and to feel like you're making a difference, to feel like you are caring. Recently, I've been looking at this idea of why attendance matters. For example, in our school district, we had about 9% of people that are enrolled but aren't showing up average daily attendance. And I found this NPR piece that showed that the number one question, if a student can answer positively, that shows that they're going to show up almost every day is there an adult at school that cares about you? So For me, I think the thing that is kept me in education despite the challenges, and I know you know exactly what I'm talking about with that, is being a caring adult for somebody. It brings purpose and meaning, and it also gives me a lot of joy to be able to learn and to be around youth. I mean, I'm goofy sometimes, and so it's kind of my people. I try to learn the new ways of saying things and things like that. So it's up my alley. I enjoy it, being able to be around the kids and try to be an influence for better and be a caring adult and offer some structure.
You said something that struck a chord with me. You say you want to be there to influence and then be influenced. Talk about how the kids have influenced you, or education as a whole has influenced you in how you think or how you operate.
Absolutely. So, kids come from a lot of different backgrounds. They come from, in Spanish, my heritage classes, for example, I have students that are from Colombia, or their roots or their parents are from Colombia, Venezuela, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, of course, different regions, and even the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic. And so they come with their own words, accents. And I tell them at the beginning of the year, hey, I'm not the only expert in the room. Everyone here has something to offer. This is the way I learned it, but I'm curious to hear the way that you say this thing or the way you look at this thing. And then one of the things that's really moved me, and then I say what has influenced me, is I have this project for my heritage class uh, towards the end of the year. It's kind of a capstone project where they do research on immigration, but they really make it personal. They find the most recent immigrant and their family who's come, and they interview them, and they find out the reasons, what was going on in their country, why they felt like this was necessary, what the journey was like, what it was like to come to the United States, the challenges they faced, the discrimination a lot of them had to go through. And I tell you what, every year I'm just moved, and you can't help but find and feel compassion when you see that in a human lens, and you see the emotional impact that that has on families, instead of just looking at it from maybe a political perspective or a numbers perspective or something like
Right.
that. So humanizing that by hearing and connecting with the stories the kids have shared has really influenced me for sure.
Man, speaking of connecting and influence and purpose, compassion, you recently took over a new public servant position that when we've talked the first time, I said, okay, after you get this spot, I got to have you on again. I didn't know it would be for this, but talk about that and what made you kind of want to step into the realm of public service and quote unquote politics.
Getting into the fray, it's no easy thing, but man, it's been a ride. I don't regret it for a second. My motivations to get in there was like being a teacher, I wanted to make a difference. I saw problems arising in my community. I heard from neighbors and community members that were frustrated about, hey, these are problems we're experiencing. They would bring it up to city council or to the mayor, and it wouldn't get fixed. And as a teacher, you have to be a problem solver, whether it be helping find motivation for a student that's not easy to motivate, or finding a way to teach someone so that they can understand it, because one way doesn't fit all. And so that same desire to solve problems and get to a better level is the same thing that moved me into this political realm, to run for office, wanting to be able to actually do something about the problems, and at very minimum, be honest about the situation that we're facing, not spin it, not, give excuses, say, hey, this is what we're dealing with, and be personable as well. If someone says, hey, this is going on, I want to take your call. If they put something on Facebook, I want to reach out and say, hey, how can we help? Let's figure it out. So those same skills that I've developed and learned as an educator, I feel have been an asset for me to try to be a public servant, someone worthy of the public's trust.
Can you share some of the challenges that you faced as far as how is things similar to the classroom, and then how are things different? Like, and if you could give a specific example, like that would be great.
Okay. So definitely some similarities in the challenges that you face. As a teacher, that first day, it's trying to size up your class, figure out how you can get buy-in from your audience, right? How can you connect with these people and gain trust? Because ultimately, as an educator, if you don't have the trust of your students and they don't feel like you care about
You're
them, they're not
toast.
going to give. It doesn't matter. You can throw your curriculum out the window. So that's my first step as an educator. And so with the public, being approachable, being transparent and honest about the situation. But in regards to challenges, there also are some similarities. Sometimes there are people that they don't want to get on board. You try. I would say it's actually different. I would actually say it's probably from experience in the years in the classroom. I feel like I can reach pretty much any child that I have the privilege of teaching. I can find a way, as hard and scaly as they may be on the outside, I'll find that inner core and find a way to connect.
Fellow educator, how important is it to build trust and find ways to connect in the classroom to create that buy-in? Do you feel like that is a day one thing and you need to do it? Or Are you on the other side where you go, I'm the teacher, I'm the authority, it is my job to teach you? So let's get into it. You can share your thoughts and where you stand on our Facebook group, Teacher Triumphs Overcoming Burnout. And now back to Tim.
The other day, there was a student. He's not even my student, but I was covering for another teacher who was teaching ELAR, and this student, he gave off this persona like, you can't mess with me, like a bad, like he tried to be like bad or whatever. I don't know how to describe, but kind of challenging the authority in front of the class and that type of thing. And I was like, there's got to be a way I can find this kid and I can reach him. And so I asked, hey, where are you from? At first, he didn't want to give anything away. Like his initial reaction to me was, I don't trust this guy. I don't know why he chose like that. That was his initial reaction. I'm sure there were reasons, right? But I was like, I'm going to break down this barrier. So he gave me a little information. That's all I needed. He ended up telling me he was from Baton Rouge, and boom, I had an instant connection. I'm from Louisiana. We talked about Baton Rouge. We talked about restaurants there, the LSU Tigers, Southern Jaguars, and boom, that barrier was broken. And now when he sees me in the hallway, he's like, hey, Coach Wood, how you doing? How you doing, Mr. Wood? So that's with the students. Now, different from that, and that's why I say I feel like it's easier in the classroom. A 65-year-old male, someone who's middle age, older age, they have their mentality. They make a snap judgment, or for whatever reason, they're influenced and they want to see the world a certain way. And I've found that they're just people that there's nothing you can say to win them over. And that's been a little tough, because as a teacher, I feel like that's part of the magic of the trade, finding a way, adjusting and finding a way to reach anyone. But I've had to deal with and just accept there's people out in the community that from the day that I put my name forward to run, they were haters. They didn't want to have anything to do with me. There was nothing I could say that was going to win them over. And I just have to accept it and move forward. And even though they may not be my cheerleaders, they may not care about me, ever be supporters, I still want to look out for their interest. And as a teacher, you have to do the same thing. Even with those kids that are giving you trouble, that make your life difficult, that give you those gray hairs a little prematurely, you still got to have their best interest at heart and try to find a way to reach them. So yeah, I feel like that's a similarity in both positions and a little bit of how they're different too.
What's one of those issues in the community that's something that you really want to get across, but not everybody is like on board? And so how are you trying to present that value? Like, how do you get to those people with this specific issue?
I appreciate that question. When I ran the first time and was unsuccessful, and also my most recent campaign where I was blessed to be successful this past, May of 2023, I ran on a platform of zero property tax. I wasn't an insider. I didn't have any family members on, city council. I didn't have access to reports and things like that. But I was under the impression that with that same mentality, there's got to be a way to reach a child. There's got to be a way to solve this problem. I was thinking there's got to be a way without burdening residents to be able to fix the problems that started to show that you could kind of see, okay, there's a problem here. They don't have enough funding. When I got into office, and I was actually looking at the numbers, it kind of shocked me. We're not the same 5,000 population bedroom community in sleepy Fort Bend County that we used to be. Fort Bend County is one of the fastest growing counties in the United States. Yeah. Projected to have 1 million people by like 2027 in our county. And, the population growth has happened in our city as well. And with that being so close proximity to Houston, surrounded by bigger cities like Sugar Land, Houston, and Missouri City, we also have, challenges and needs that arise. So you have to be able to adapt to the circumstances. One of those challenges is providing adequate public safety. Got to have good fire. You got to have good police services. You got to deal. We may be a small community, but we're on literally the border of Houston. And some of those situations that happen there, they spill over into our community. So you can't shortcut that. You can't underfund police and fire. And so the only way as a public servant that I can be effective and do what I intended to do, which is to be able to tell them, thank you for telling me about this issue. We're going to find a way to fix it. Is there's got to be resources to do it. So that's what it's a hard message to send to the public, because if you're used to not having to pay property taxes, hey, they were able to do it back then. What's your problem? You get in there and now all of a sudden you can't handle it. And so that's kind of the ire that's bubbling up from some of the members of our community. But what I hope that they can understand is I didn't want this reality, but I'm telling you the facts as they are. So that's the challenge. Telling people it's that tough love. Hey, look, what do you want out of your community? What is for you? For me, it's a way of life, like quality of life.
So
Right.
how do you manage, because this sounds extremely stressful. How do you manage the emotional toll and mental toll that it takes on you to run public office, but also to do all of the things that you need to do as a teacher and a coach as well? How do you prioritize and manage those things?
And add to that a husband and a father. It's not easy.
Man,
But, like any good teacher such as yourself knows, it's all about finding balance, work-life balance. Sometimes you have to focus on one thing. When your child's sick, that's your priority right then. You know what I mean? So you just have to put your focus at the time. You're juggling to a degree, but it's really, okay, which is the priority right now? And I'm blessed that I can lean on my wife a lot to help me. Otherwise, I couldn't be able to do this. If I were a single parent, I don't know that I would be able to handle this on my own, because it is a lot. But, for example, I'm really grateful that I have very supportive administrators in Stafford Middle School. They've been very understanding. They understand my unique position as being teacher coach, but also a public servant. And so when there's a meeting that I just cannot miss, I'll tell them about it. And absolutely, Mr. Wood, we got you. We're going to cover you. And so I feel really grateful that they're understanding and flexible. And I also, communicate to the mayor, like, hey, can we please not have meetings, before 3 p.m. I do have a day job. I'm not retired like a lot of these people. And so I'm lucky that there are other
Right.
council members, like, Councilman Bostic, and I think Councilman Caldwell as well. They're also working. And so they understand that struggle. And so it's helpful, although they might have been used to having these 2 p.m. meetings, like, hey, that doesn't actually work that great for some of us that are still working. So it's just finding flexibility,
Right.
finding balance, and focusing on the thing that's most important at that time.
Have you yet come across a time where you felt burned out with the two roles?
I mean, there have been stressful days. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. But at the end of the day, you got to think about your motivation,
What did
and you
what did
gotta
those look
you
like?
gotta the stressful days.
Like the signs, maybe it's a beginning or the end of the day. What is that? I guess what does that feel like for you? Because you know what a good day feels like. What does a
Right.
hard day feel like? I guess when you get home and you sit at the table or wherever.
A hard day, it's where you can't unplug. For me, that's kind of what it feels like. Like,
Mm,
some people, like, they can keep work at work and they can keep home life there, and so they don't have to, like, intermingle. As teachers, we don't normally have that luxury. We got to bring grading home. We got to lesson plan. We got to be available for parents that want to contact us in the middle of the night and things like that. So, but most of us, we have some kind of a routine where we're able to relax, kind of unplug for a moment, and just be us for just a moment where we're not dealing with that stress. But so I would say, to answer your question, a stressful day is a day where I can't really reach that point where I'm able to relax. Either the issue is just too big, or there's too many things that I'm thinking about. How I can make this better, or how can I can reach these people, that I can't. And so I just have trouble getting to sleep, have trouble, you know, refocusing. And so I think that's not unique to my position, just being a teacher and in political office. I think all of us, whatever our careers may be, and as parents, we have those days where it's just hard to reach that relaxation. We're just too stressed.
How has it affected your family? You know, once you get in office, are people like, oh, that's Tim Wood's family, you know, screw those guys. Have you ever had anything like that? Because I, I guess that's what I think about. Because you know, when you, I guess when you watch TV and there's movies, there's all kinds of media and stuff, and what people put out there. I'm sure it is not like every day somebody's badgering you or your family, but how has it affected your family with this new duality for you?
I think it's been positive and negative. You're not wrong about sometimes feeling like you're the subject of immense scrutiny and sometimes even jeers. There have been some members of the public that uh, I try to make it a practice if I get there early enough to try to go and shake everyone's hand, introduce myself, and try to get to know the person that shows up to a city council meeting. I really appreciate and I want the public to be involved. It doesn't matter if they're there to speak against something that I might have put on the agenda. I still want to get out there and be personable and try to introduce myself. And there's been more than one occasion where someone has just been ruthless and I feel like completely unfair.
Mm.
So that's a challenge. And my wife's very defensive of me. And so when she gets a hint of that, she gets really angry. And you have to maintain your composure. You've got to be professional. And as a teacher, this is the same thing in the classroom. There may be a time where a student's going through something and they make a dig, and that dig actually lands. It hurts, but you have to maintain that professionalism and just refocus as quickly as you can and stay, because you're the one in charge. You're the adult in the room, so that's your responsibility. So I'm glad that I have the experience of being a teacher, because those are transferable skills that I definitely need to use. On the other end of the spectrum, it's also come with some good things. And I've been out and about in the community, and they're like, "Oh, there's Mr. Wood," and and sometimes it's not me that they're recognizing. They're like, "Oh, are you Miss Wood's husband?" Because my wife actually started teaching first grade, and so a lot of people that we ran into, like, "Oh, my little sister or my little brother is in your wife's class. Are you Miss Wood's husband?" And that kind of stuff. And so that's nice. And then when people stop you in the hallway in the middle school, and students you don't even have, these are just students that are in the school, but they're not in your classroom. Like, "Oh, you're Mr. Wood, right? Like I saw you on this," or "My mom told me that she voted for you," or something like that. That feels good. It feels good to get some of that positive, feedback and recognition and things like that. And it helps you stay focused on the motivation. What am I here for? Regardless of whether I'm getting compliments or insults, what is my motivation? And it's to make a difference. I want to make our government transparent. I want to make it responsive to the needs of the citizens. I want them to feel like, hey, if there's an issue, they could tell us about it, and we're going to do our darndest to find a solution for them. So good, bad, ugly, whatever it is, that's what I signed up for. And even though there are those stressful days where it's hard to unplug and move on, there are also those days full of joy. Just like I know as a teacher, those days where you just feel, hey, I did something, like, recycling. I told people, hey, I want to bring recycling. I found many members of the community that were like, hey, why aren't we doing recycling? And when we had that opportunity, the first time there was a garbage, fee or a garbage contract on the thing, I reached out to those same community members. I made a note when I was out knocking those doors, like I knocked your door. And I said, hey, look, this is on the agenda, come out. And those people, they showed up. They showed up, they spoke. And there were some of my colleagues, I think they really weren't on board. But when they saw all those community members show up and say, hey, we want this, they did it. We did it. So being able to achieve things that you set out to do, that brings a great degree of satisfaction.
And a great thing that you just said was you were out there in the community, you knock doors, you make connections, much like you do in the classroom. And so when something needs to happen and you start making those calls, the people who mess with you, they're going to show up, they're going to support. And just like you've knocked on my door, and we've had our conversations, and it's really good to have somebody that's in office that is personable and out here with the people, because that's not what the perception of what politics really are, even though there are tons of great people doing good stuff. And so when I saw you on the news, I was like, that's my dog, Tim Wood. I got to have him on the show again. So,
Thank you, Tony. That means a lot.
um, are there, I just want to ask one more question about family because I know I was talking to another guy earlier, and he was a head basketball coach for 38 years. Coach Nick, I'm gonna have Coach Nick on. And we talked about how it's so important to have your family on board with the vision that you have because it's going to take so much of you, and it's unilaterally going to take so much of them as well. So, what are some things that maybe you all have put in place? Maybe some kind of structure, or how are they involved in any way as far as public office and what you do for the city?
So I really feel grateful that my family is very supportive. Uh,
Mhm.
I know that when I knocked on your door, I think I was by myself, but for some of those times I was out knocking doors, it was with my son or with my daughter. And so they know what my role is. They're excited. They're supportive. How's your day, Dad? Good luck in the meeting tonight. My wife has been my hero. She's really cheered me on. Thanks to my mother-in-law being here, we can't always get a babysitter or, on a pinch, but one of the big meetings that we had that was kind of, a little contentious there at moments, thanks to my mother-in-law taking care of my kids, she was able to come and to have her in the audience listening and smiling. And she even got up and made a public comment, and
Mhm.
engaged. She's asking me what's going on, and she's always my springboard, listening and helping me. And a lot of times when I think, oh, we got to do this, and she's actually telling me, no, I think you should do this, and then it turns out, yep, she was right. That was a better way. So having that support for my wife, for my kids, it helps me feel like I can keep going, and it makes me want to keep going. And so it really is a big blessing to be able to have my family support me.
Why do you believe it's important for educators, I guess anybody, but if you could link it to educators, that would be great, to be involved in local government and community leadership?
I think it's so important. I think it's important for working individuals to be involved, educators especially. As educators, we are we face the brunt. As government employees, there are decisions that people that are in elected office make that affect us greatly. Recently
Mhm.
we've all heard about the push for private school vouchers. And
Mhm.
a lot of school districts right now are experiencing financial challenges because the funding from the state isn't what it used to be. It's not growing with the needs. And so a lot of school districts, unfortunately, are having to let people go or forego raises for teachers and other very valuable and important employees, transportation, cafeteria, all those things, because people that have sought and gotten political office are making decisions. And so I would definitely tell my fellow educators, and not just educators, everyone, you know, it
Mm.
shouldn't just be a hobby of the retired and the wealthy. Political office and involvement is going to reflect the people that are there. So if we're seeing what that's reflecting, right? So if we want change, if we want things to really address our needs and the things that we're going through, then perhaps our representatives need to be a little bit more reflective of those needs. And so if
Mm.
political office is only seen as something that is a hobby, like I said, of the extremely rich and the retirees, there might be a disconnect with the needs of the working man and woman, of the parent, because that's not the stage of life that they're in. They're not struggling. So it is a struggle to have a teacher's salary, get a very small stipend for being a city councilman. It's a big time commitment, but I think it's
Mhm.
important that that voice be represented. And, you know, when we talk about issues, I come from a different perspective. I don't come from the perspective of someone that's, tending after grandkids. And that's an important perspective. All of those perspectives really should be
Mhm.
represented. I feel like it's a little outweighted towards a certain way. And so I would encourage any working person, get involved. If you care, if it has an impact on you, and honestly, local politics has a bigger impact on your life than national politics. National
Yep.
politics capture all the media attention. But when you're talking about your water, your trash pickup, you're talking about your streets, having good parks, all of those things, having good police and fire, those are quality of life things that are going to affect you directly. So definitely get involved. Currently, the average turnout for local elections in Maine Stafford is between 9 and 15%. That's not great. So I just want to encourage everyone to get involved. And as I hope I've demonstrated, there's some skills I've definitely picked up in the classroom that are a real big help dealing with the challenges of city government.
Okay, last thing, Tim. If you are speaking to, not if, you are speaking to fellow educators, fellow teachers, and admin, people in many different positions in education, what advice would you give them on holding their position in education as well as taking up public office? If you were to just give them 3 things, what would they be?
Always remember your why. Every individual has their personal why. It might have been a teacher you had as a child that made a huge difference for you, and that's why you are where you are. Whatever your why is that motivates you, got to keep that front and center. Think about outcomes and think about the opportunity to influence. As teachers, we can be a tremendous influence for good, showing up for those kids, being that caring adult. The reason why a child who maybe last year struggled just showing up to school is now there and engaged because they want to see you. That should be a big part of your why, and keeping that in mind. And in regards to getting involved, the decisions that are being made, you can either be part of the process or you can just be the recipient of what's going on. So if you want to have a voice, you got to speak up. You got to participate in the process, whether it's voting. If you're not used to voting, getting out there, we can all complain. And, I've complained as well about why is this situation happening and things like that. But, as a teacher, you got to get down and you got to get it done. You got to find a way.
Yeah.
As a coach, same thing. You have challenges and you just got to find a way to confront them. So in life, when things aren't going the way you want them to, getting involved, whether it's as simple as registering to vote, getting out and voting, or taking the step and running for office. And if not everyone has the persona that they want to do that because it's such a public thing and there's pressure and the heightened scrutiny. We already are in the fishbowl as teachers. So I would say you probably already are used to it. So we're probably really apt to be able to do it. But it could be as easy as showing up at a school board meeting and speaking up about something, looking at those agendas, seeing what might impact me, or my fellow educators or these students. Showing up at a city council meeting, checking out those agendas. What's on this meeting? Oh, this actually is something that really, it's important to me. Showing up and speaking, public comments. Like I said, with the recycling, they can really swing a vote. When you show up and you show your face and you show, hey, I care enough to show up. They say 90% of success is just showing up. So just showing up, whether it be at the ballot box, in the classroom, showing up for your kids, in your home, showing up for your family, in the political realm, showing up and say, hey, I have a voice, listen, okay? I feel like that's my biggest advice I could give to people.
All right, Tim, man, Mr. Wood, thank you so much and congratulations for winning in all the great things that you're doing in our community.
Thank you, Tony. It's really been a privilege. It always is. Best of luck to you this next school year. Enjoy the time off.
You too. That is our episode for today. Of course, I'll have on someone else to talk about education in all of its complexities next Monday and next Thursday. It was great to have Tim on to talk about serving the public in a very different way. Somebody's got to go in there and have the best interests of the community at heart. Who better than a teacher to do so? Before we get out of here, remember, if we want things to change, we've got to be ready to contribute the best way we know how. For some people, that's running for office, and for others, that's just simply attending meetings. but it's important that we become more a part of our communities because we can serve them for the better when we know what they need. Also, your local politicians are people too, with families, hopes, dreams, and jobs as well. Don't be the worst part of society that bashes these people. Ask questions, get involved, be a part of the solution. Don't be an internet gangster. There's most likely information you are not privy to that will better help you understand their position. Because you enjoyed that episode and you want more teacher tips on burnout and time management, join our Facebook group, Teacher Triumphs Overcoming Burnout. This is where we share applicable strategies and encourage each other on the journey through education. Until next time, keep teaching, keep learning, and I will see you all on the next journey.